The Champions League, club football's biggest stage. This is a stage where legends are made, where careers are destroyed, and where miracles happen. And over the past decade, it's given us exactly that. It's been absolute chaos. All the changes in tactics, the shock wins, the absolute bottle jobs, and most importantly, some of the most iconic moments in football history. Today, I'm going to be explaining every single team that won the Champions League since 2015 and putting them in a tier list. 2015, Barcelona. And wow, what a team we are starting off with. Messi, Suarez, Neymar, all led by Luis Enrique. I mean, this Barcelona team was destroying teams every week. It did not matter what competition it was. It could be La Liga, it could be the Copa del Rey, and most importantly, it could be the Champions League. They would destroy anything that was in front of them. And this was mainly due to their attack. Messi, Suarez, Neymar, MSN. This was the most terrifying attack that we have ever seen in football. And they showed it against every team. Every week they were scoring goals for fun. Whether it be against Sevilla, Bayern Munich, Man City, Real Madrid, Messi, Suarez, and Neymar were out there just having fun. In fact, all three of them racked up over 30 GA in the season. And the rest of Europe could simply not compete. And they came up against a really unique but amazing Juventus team in the final, with growing young talents like Morata and Pogba, while also having the world-class proven unks like Bonucci, Patrice Evra, Andrea Pirlo, Carlos Tevez. I mean, this team was crazy, but there was nothing in the world that could stop this Barcelona team that year. They easily beat them 3-1 in the final, with Ivan Rakitic scoring in the 4th minute, Luis Suarez in the 68th minute, and Neymar wrapping it up in stoppage time. This was the end of a treble winning season for Barcelona, one of the greatest teams of all time, and they had produced some absolutely iconic moments. Messi dropping Boateng and then chipping Neuer. Messi scoring that goal against Athletic Bilbao in the Copa del Rey final, scientifically proven to be one of the most impossible goals ever scored. And the absolute scenes in Berlin after full time where we got some of the most iconic pictures ever. With all that being said, all the iconic moments, the way they played, the beautiful football, and that attacking masterclass they put on, this has to be an S tier team. 2016, 17, and 18, Real Madrid. Now, I could have done each of these teams separately, but let's be honest, this was the same team every year. Zinedine Zidane took over in the middle of 2016, and he won the Champions League that year, the year after, and the year after that, using almost the exact same team every single time. And wow, what an absolute iconic team this was. The midfield, Modric, Casemiro, Toni Kroos, all all-timers. The attack, Benzema, Bale, Cristiano Ronaldo. It could not get much better than this. Everywhere you looked was an absolute all-timer. Even in the defense, Ramos, Marcelo, Pepe, Dani Carvajal. When you think of the Champions League, this is the team you think of. Because in the span of those 3 years, they absolutely dominated European football. And I'm going to start with 2016, where they went unbeaten in the group stage. But in the middle of the season, they sacked their manager Rafa Benitez after a run of bad form and a 4-0 loss to Barcelona. After this, they appointed club legend and footballing icon Zinedine Zidane as their manager, as they thought he could bring this team back together and start winning them trophies again. And he did exactly what he was asked to. Right away, they faced Roma in the round of 16 and smashed them 4-0. And in the next round, they went down 2-0 to Wolfsburg away, but won 3-0 in the home leg with one of the most iconic Champions League performances ever from Cristiano Ronaldo, scoring a hat-trick, leading his team to victory. Madrid then earned a hard-fought 1-0 victory against City in the semi-final, allowing them to play Madrid rivals Atleti, who they had just beaten in the Champions League final a couple of years ago. And this game was intense. Both teams wanted it, and it went into penalties where Madrid would eventually see it through and win 5-3, earning them their 11th Champions League. Some people thought Madrid had gotten lucky this year, that they weren't that good of a team, that it was by chance that they won the Champions League, but they would prove all of the haters wrong the next year, because the 2016-17 team of Real Madrid was one of the most dominant in Champions League history. This was Cristiano Ronaldo's best ever year that I've seen. It was also the rise of Isco, the midfield dominance of Casemiro, Kroos, and Modric, and Madrid were absolutely steamrolling teams. 6-2 on aggregate against Napoli, 6-3 in aggregate against Bayern Munich with Ronaldo scoring a hat-trick, and a 4-2 win against Atleti in the semi-final after a hat-trick from Ronaldo in the first leg, and in the second leg, where Atleti looked like they were coming back at the Calderon, but one man, Isco, would not let Madrid fall, scoring a crucial away goal and delivering one of the best performances we've ever seen from him. And they went up against Juventus in the final, which on paper it looked like an absolute massacre with a 4-1 victory, but if you watch the game, it was not all that. Ronaldo started off in the 20th minute, with Mario Mandzukic equalizing 7 minutes later, and this turned the game into a tight contest until the 61st minute when Casemiro decided he would do it himself and took a 25-yard shot, which took a slight deflection, but it went in, and this opened the floodgates for Madrid. Ronaldo scored again 3 minutes later, and Asensio finished it off in the 90th minute for a 4-1 victory. They had done it, champions again, for the second time in a row, and people finally realized what this Madrid team was really about. It was about pure dominance through class, with players like Modric, Ronaldo, Toni Kroos. They knew they were the best team in the world, and they played like it on the field. But surely they couldn't do it for a third year in a row, right? They absolutely could. The whole team came back. They still had the same players that they had for the past 2 seasons, which is an absolute luxury, and a luxury that could only be used by a team like Real Madrid. Because why would anyone even bother about thinking of leading that team? Anyways, moving on to the 17-18 season, Madrid won the Champions League this season, but this was arguably the most controversial one, and it all starts in the quarterfinal against Juventus in the second leg, after a complete bottle job from Madrid. They were up 3-0 after the first leg, yet they conceded 3 goals and it was 3-3 by the 98th minute. Madrid were absolutely on the ropes, and in the 98th minute, Lucas Vazquez went down after what had seemed like a ghost had touched him, because there was no way anyone else had. Madrid earned a penalty, and Gianluigi Buffon was absolutely livid, going off at the referee and earning himself a red card. After this whole incident, Ronaldo absolutely smashes his penalty and Real Madrid go through. This would not at all be the end of the controversy, because it got worse towards the end. In the semifinal, there wasn't much to it, even though Bayern fans will tell you that they got robbed, which I don't think is really true. I think Madrid were going to win the game either way, but Bayern fans will tell you that the referee had a terrible game. The real controversy comes from Sergio Ramos in the final, and here there's 2 instances of Ramos being an absolute clown. First off, it was early in the game, and Ramos pulled on Mohamed Salah by tangling his arms and dislocated his shoulder. Salah went off crying, and Liverpool started collapsing after that moment. Obviously, Ramos has denied that this was intentional, but if you know anything about Ramos, you will know that this was most likely not that. But this second incident, the incident that people don't talk enough about, happened just minutes after Salah went off injured. Madrid had a corner and the ball was played in. Ramos had no intention of going for the ball, went into the front post and absolutely elbowed Karius in the head, which seemed like a clear attempt to injure Liverpool's player. Let's be real, Ramos should not have been playing in this final after this moment, and Real Madrid should have been down to 10 men. But obviously this doesn't happen. Liverpool lose, Madrid win. Bale scores his amazing bicycle kick, which is probably one of the greatest goals in Champions League final history. Karius makes 2 mistakes, and Madrid cruised to the victory. In the end, this run that Madrid had from 2016 to 18, with all the same players in the team, the same squad, the same manager, this was one of the greatest runs that we've seen from a single club in footballing history. And just for that, they have to go in the S tier with that 2015 Barcelona team. But I will say, if we were doing this separately, if we separated all 3 teams, I'd say 2017 would be the only one in S tier, and I'd put the other 2 teams in A tier. Now let's move on to 2019, Liverpool. Now this team wanted revenge for what happened the year before. They signed a new keeper in Alisson. No more Karius, no more mistakes. And they absolutely dominated teams all season, whether it be in the Premier League or the Champions League. In fact, in the Premier League, they got 99 points this season, which any other year you would win the league by a landslide. But City were just on something else that year, so they didn't win that. But in the Champions League, they honestly did not have the best start at all. It came down to the last game of the group against Napoli, where they had to win to qualify for the next round. And they were up 1-0. In the 93rd minute, Napoli gets a shot on target, and Alisson pulls off the save of the season, sending Liverpool through into the knockouts. And this started Liverpool's magical run. They beat Bayern and the underdogs in the round of 16. They cruised to a 6-1 victory on aggregate in the quarterfinal against Porto. And in the next round, the infamous tie versus Barcelona, the team that was most people's favorites to win the Champions League this season, with Messi playing like the best player in the world by a country mile. And in the first leg, it was 90 minutes of pure suffering for Liverpool. Messi was on absolute fire, so was Suarez, scoring in the 26th minute, and Messi wrapped it up in the 75th and 82nd minute, with one of them being a 35-yard free kick, which is one of the best that we've ever seen. It truly felt like it was over for Liverpool. It truly felt like there was no coming back against this inevitable Barcelona team. But the following week, magic happened at Anfield. Liverpool got an early goal thanks to their clutch player of the year, Divock Origi, in the 7th minute, and then their super sub, Gini Wijnaldum, scored in the 54th and 56th minute right after coming on to tie the game at 3-3. And 20 minutes later, we all know what happens next. It was over. Liverpool had completed one of the greatest comebacks in Champions League history, and they were to face Tottenham in the Champions League final, which no one gave Tottenham a chance, and honestly, rightly so. Salah put his penalty away early in the game, and Divock Origi wrapped it up late in the game for a 2-0 Liverpool win after one of the most boring Champions League finals of all time. This Liverpool team had fully deserved this Champions League final win, and they did it through heart and passion. And for their campaign, I'm putting them in the A tier. They didn't have all the massive names and dominant performances like the Madrid and the Barcelona team I put in S tier, but a very good team nonetheless. The next is Bayern in 2020. And I think some people might get mad at what I'm about to say, but this is one of the most overrated football teams of all time. I mean, the praise that these guys get, I get that they were a really good footballing team. I get that they won the sextuple that year, but there's no way to warrant them as one of the best teams of all time, which some people do say that. And this is mainly because of two things: the competition they faced and the fact that they won all their trophies in the COVID era. I mean, in the round of 16, they played a young Chelsea team and absolutely battered them, yes. But this was such a young Chelsea team that had no experience and they couldn't make any signings because of the transfer ban. They wanted to face Barca in the quarterfinal, which, yes, they beat 8-2, one of the most humiliating defeats of all time. But let's be real, this was after the whole COVID situation. I think this game was played in like June or July. A Champions League quarterfinal game in June or July. No fans in the stadium. The quarterfinal and the semifinal were literally one leg. It was like it was set up for Bayern to win that year. Nevertheless, they did go on to the final and they did beat PSG after a goal from Coman, a brilliant performance from Neuer, and some missed chances from Mbappe and Neymar. I know it sounded like I was just purely hating on them, but this was a very good team. They won all 11 games they played in this season. They only conceded 8 goals throughout the entire tournament. This was a dominant Champions League performance from Bayern. I just think people overrated it a little bit too much. Overall, I'll put them in the A tier with Liverpool. Next is Chelsea in 2021. And for this one, I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible since I am a Chelsea fan. But to start it off, this was an absolutely crazy season for Chelsea fans. After Lampard's first season when he had youngsters, he wasn't allowed to sign players, he did very well and got Chelsea into the top 4 and into the Champions League. Following this first season, Chelsea's transfer ban got lifted and Chelsea signed so many players. Havertz, Werner, Ziyech, Ben Chilwell. All of these would seem to be like world-class signings. It really looked like Chelsea were going to challenge for the league and do really well in the Champions League this season. They did dominate in the Champions League group stage, but in the league, Lampard had us sitting at 9th place in January. And after a run of particularly bad form, he was sacked and Thomas Tuchel was brought in the middle of January to replace him. And oh my god, for the next 6 months, it looked like Chelsea was the best team in the world. Thomas Tuchel had transformed this underperforming, underachieving team of absolute flops into Champions League winners. This was probably one of the most unexpected Champions League wins of all time. A team that was struggling in 9th place in January. It looked like everything was going downhill, but they somehow figured a way to turn it all around. And in the Champions League, it all started from Olivier Giroud's bicycle kick in a 1-0 win against Atleti at the Wanda Metropolitano. The next leg would see Chelsea keep cruising on to victory with another 2-0 win over Atleti at the Bridge. After this came the quarterfinal against Porto, where once again Chelsea cruised to an easy 2-1 victory, with Porto never creating a single clear-cut chance throughout the 2 legs, and the only goal being an absolute banger from Mehdi Taremi. Next, going over to Real Madrid in the semifinal, where both teams battled out for a 1-1 draw in the first leg, and then over to Stamford Bridge for the second leg. Chelsea absolutely dominated this Real Madrid team. There were goals from a Werner and Mount, and an absolute dominant performance from N'Golo Kante, as well as the rest of Chelsea's defense. Then on to the final, where it was 1-0 on paper with Kai Havertz scoring around the 40th minute, but in reality this game was never really a competition. Chelsea were dominating, creating chances. Chelsea could have had 4 or 5 goals on this day if Werner and Pulisic could finish. And this wrapped up a historical campaign for Chelsea, conceding only 4 goals. Yes, 4 goals throughout the whole Champions League. This was a Champions League record, and this should not go unnoticed. The defensive work from the likes of Thiago Silva, N'Golo Kante, Andreas Christensen, Antonio Rudiger, Ben Chilwell, and Reece James was genuinely one of the best defenses I've witnessed in my life. After all that being said, although I am a Chelsea fan, I'm going to be honest and I'm going to put this team in B tier. This team is nowhere near the levels of 2015 Barcelona or the Madrid teams that we saw through 2018. Along with that, I don't think we were as good as the Liverpool or the Bayern teams that I recently talked about. But that doesn't take anything away from the fact that this team dominated. 4 goals conceded from the group stage all the way to the final. That is something no other team in history can say. Continuing on, we have Real Madrid in 2022. And I'm going to be so real, I have no idea how this team even won the Champions League. They were down in every single knockout round game. I've kept this video pretty clean so far, but just thinking about this team pisses me the fuck off. Because ain't no way every game we thought these motherfuckers were going to lose. Every game. It was against Chelsea, against PSG, against Man City. They would find some dark magic juju to somehow help them win. First off, in the round of 16, it really seemed like PSG were cruising to a 2-0 victory after the halftime of the second leg. And all of a sudden, Karim Benzema popped up out of nowhere and scores 3 goals in 17 minutes to give Madrid the lead and take them into the next round. And this bullshit would not stop in the quarterfinal either, because after the first leg, Madrid were already up 3-1 against Chelsea after a dominant performance at the Bridge from Karim Benzema, who by the way scored another hat-trick. Then in the second leg at the Bernabeu, Chelsea came back. This was one of the most dominant performances that I have seen from my club ever since I started supporting them. I genuinely thought we were about to make one of the best comebacks we've ever had. We had never seen Madrid get cooked like this at the Bernabeu ever. They literally created no chances all game, and then suddenly in the 80th minute, out of absolute nothing, Modric makes this beautiful pass to Rodrigo, and he just taps it in to make it tie game and goes into extra time. Benzema scores in extra time and Madrid win. This has to be one of the most heartbreaking days in Chelsea Football Club's history. And if you thought this absolute fuckery would stop, no, it would keep going on. In the semi-final, the second leg at the Bernabeu, it seemed like Man City had it wrapped up. It was the 89th minute and they were up by 2 goals. And then something magical, something you can't explain. Only way you could explain this is through dark magic. Rodrigo scores 2 goals in 2 minutes, ties the game. Benzema scores a penalty again in extra time, and Madrid win. Madrid then faced Liverpool in the final, where Trent would get caught lacking at the back post, Vinny would finish, and for the rest of the game, you would see Thibaut Courtois pulling off the most ridiculous saves that you've ever seen in a Champions League final. And that was just a cherry on the cake after an absolute satanic season from Real Madrid, and a satanic season of Champions League football in general. With that being said, I have to put this in no other tier but F tier. What we saw this season was not football, it was pure witchcraft. Now moving on to 2023, where Manchester City absolutely dominated the world of football. Pep had finally accomplished his mission. He brought the Champions League back to City, and not just that, he did it by winning the treble. He brought in Erling Haaland, and Man City absolutely dominated any team that came in front of them. They dominated Madrid and Bayern on their way to facing Inter in the final, where it was actually a tough test for them, but the fact that Lukaku missed all those chances and Rodri scored a banger around the 60th or 70th minute, and City had won their first UCL and completed their treble. For me, this is going in the A tier, just above Liverpool and Bayern, but just below Barcelona's 2015 team and Madrid's team through 2018. And for 2024, yet again, we have Real Madrid. Now this one I can kind of respect. This was Jude's breakout season. This was Vinny's crowning season. And they won games in a respectable manner. Against City, they won in penalties. They had a respectable win against Leipzig in the round of 16. But as we know, this is Madrid, and controversy will always come. Against Bayern, Real Madrid were 10 minutes away from not being in the final and Bayern Munich taking their spot. And then, in typical black magic fashion, Joselu, out of all people, equalizes off of a Manuel Neuer error in the 89th minute, and Matthias de Ligt scores in stoppage time. He could have made it 2-2, and the assistant ref flagged offside before the shot was even attempted. This meant that there couldn't be a VAR check, and Real Madrid had done it again. The Black Magic Club strikes again. And on to the final, they absolutely dominated Dortmund, a 2-0 win with goals from Carvajal and Vinny, and Madrid were champions of Europe again. And for this team, I'm putting them in the B tier with Chelsea. I just don't think the competition was up to par as usual in the Champions League this season. Now finally, we have this year's PSG team, and this has to be one of the greatest stories in the Champions League in the past 10 years. I mean, they had just lost their club legend, Kylian Mbappe. Everyone thought they were going to be in the gutter, and honestly, they were. For the first part of the season, they weren't even likely to qualify for the round of 32 of the Champions League, but they eventually did on the last day, and this is where everything changed for them. After this, these guys just started playing like prime Barca. No one could keep up with them. They beat Liverpool, Aston Villa, and Arsenal on the way to the final versus Inter Milan, where they absolutely dominated them with a scoreline of 5-0, with Doué putting in an amazing performance, Hakimi, Nuno Mendes, Ousmane Dembele getting Ballon d'Or shouts. I mean, it was really beautiful to see PSG winning this. And this honestly might be an unpopular opinion, but I would put this PSG team in S tier. And I know a lot of people won't think that after what happened at the Club World Cup against Chelsea, but if that game never happened, people would still be saying this is one of the greatest teams in the past 20 years. I mean, the way people switched up on this team after one game was insane. Anyways, that's all I got for today. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and see you in the next one.